Star Wars collectors, welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video and welcome to episode 20 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. So this is the weekly series that drops every Sunday, and I'm sure you're all aware by now that it's a Q&A series where you guys get to ask me questions in the comments section below, and then every week I do my very best to answer them. I really do love this series. I can't actually believe that it's been 20 weeks that I've been doing this now. It is quite a lot of work, I've got to admit, but I'm not moaning because it is my favourite thing to do, because it gives me a chance to really sort of connect with the community and connect with you guys, and I'm full of appreciation for you guys watching and engaging with the video, asking your questions every week. It's really good. Now, just a couple of things before we get on to this week's questions, and the first one being that I did a live stream last night. A lot of you guys tuned in, which was really good. I had Chris from Toys of the Jedi on with me. It's a bit easier to do a live stream when there's two of you and you can go back and forth and what have you. And I really enjoyed doing that live stream. I was thinking about doing this episode 20 as a live stream, but I just didn't think the whole format would potentially work in this Q&A sort of series that I do. But that's not to say that I might not do that in the future. But if you did happen to miss that live stream, it is on the channel. I do know a couple of people said to me that it didn't come up on their notifications or whatever. So basically, to be notified about these sorts of things, you do need to hit the little notification bell, and also you do need to be subscribed. So I looked at my analytics, and 65% of the people that watch my videos over the last 28 days are not subscribed to the channel. So if you really do want to help this channel grow, and you are watching this video and you're not subscribed, then please just consider hitting that subscribe button and also hitting the notification bell, and then you won't miss a video. Second thing is that the person that won the patch that I was giving away on last week's video has actually kindly asked me to redraw it, because he said that he didn't have anywhere to put it or whatever, and that's fair enough. I don't think he thought he was going to win, which is often the case with competitions, isn't it? You just enter thinking, oh, I never win. But I'm going to redraw it now, so we're going to redraw that now. Okay then, so we're going to run this competition again. We're going to put the URL for the video into there. We're going to do filter duplicate users, get those comments, 68 unique commenters, and we're going to hit the start button and see who pops up. The winner is Jason Thornton Saunbury, Paplu, and Warwick. Absolutely correct. You are the winner. If you could contact me on one of my social medias, either Twitter or Instagram, or you can email me at tim@bosksbounty.com. Thank you very much. Alright then guys, on to the first question, but before I do, just do me a favour and hit a like on this video, as that really does help the channel and the video as well. But we'll get on to the first question right now. Ryan Avery asks, hey Bossk, what is the most expensive Star Wars vintage collection figure that you have bought? So I presume you mean how much money I've actually shelled out for a particular figure, rather than a figure that I may have bought a few years ago that's now worth quite a lot of money, like for example, the Republic Trooper. You know, I bought him for not that much really, and now he's worth like £100 or whatever. But I think if I had to pick one where I've spent probably the most money, it's Dagobah landing Luke. So Luke Skywalker, this one here, great figure, great card back. I really do love that image straight from the film there, with the X-Wing in the background. I think I paid 45 English pounds for this one, so that would probably equate to about $60. So you'll be able to let me know in the comment section below if I got a deal on that, because I haven't actually looked at the value of this figure, purely because obviously I own it now, so I haven't really sort of been looking at the current value of this figure. I hope it hasn't gone down, at least. I'm not really bothered whether it's gone up or not, but I just hope that it hasn't gone down in value. Gumbo asks, how would you feel if they made a Bossk or a Bounty Hunter spin-off show? So I've got to say, I'd love the idea of that. I think everyone would love a Bounty Hunter show. We've kind of got one, haven't we, with the Mandalorian? He is essentially a bounty hunter, or at least that's what he's doing in the beginning of the show. He's, rounding people up for money, which is basically bounty hunting. But if you made one specifically about Bossk, I would, 100% love that. But then again, I think he's just one of those characters that I'd like to have a cameo role maybe. I don't know if I'd want to see him on the screen in a whole thing dedicated to him. And just like when they mentioned him in the Solo film, that was awesome. Just that little tiny bit, mention Bossk, that was great. Darth Rock 1 says, question for next time, how did you come up with the name Bossk's Bounty? I think I have had this question before, but I'll just quickly let you know again, for anyone that's missed it. So basically, Bossk is was my favourite figure as a kid. He was always the baddie that I used. And when I was thinking about creating a website about Star Wars and my collecting and what have you, I was trying to think of names, and I wanted to think about something to do with Bossk. And I came up with Bosk's Bounty because essentially it's a collector's website, and your bounty is your collection, right? So Bosk's Bounty, I don't know. Maybe I'm a genius. Probably not, but maybe I am. But anyway, head on over to the website bosksbounty.com because I've put together a pretty neat vintage collection visual guide. I hope you'll use it as your go-to place for, you know, trying to track down the figures you might need or whatever, and it'll be always updated with the new figures and vehicles that come out. So check it out. I will leave a link to that specific page in the description below so you can check that out. Louis Cartoons says, do you ever think they will come out with a Yasim figure in the vintage collection line? And I really like your videos. Thank you, Louis or Louis. Yasim, he's the guy from Jabba's Palace, right? The singer, the bug type looking guy. No, I'm sorry, mate. He's possibly one of my worst liked characters. I really don't like what they've done to the Return of the Jedi in terms of all the extra bits that they put in that Jabba's Palace scene, the whole singing thing. I liked it exactly how it was with the two dancers. Yeah, it makes me cringe a little bit. I'm sorry. So I wouldn't want them to waste a space or a slot in the vintage collection for Yasim. RX Gold says, do you think they'll ever redo Yoda's Hut? I think it's entirely possible, mate, and I really, really do hope they do. Now, obviously, I've said it a few times, we are getting a carbon freezing chamber playset this year. Empire Strikes Back 40th anniversary. Who knows, you know, if they're going to do it, I'd hope they would do it this year. I've heard no rumours about it, but I do love the look of the vintage Yoda's Hut. I never had one as a kid. I was really gutted about that. It's something that I'd like to own now in its box. It looks great. So 100%, if they could do something like that in the vintage collection, I'll be all for it. Just a quick break from the questions. I just wanted to quickly show you that I did manage to get my Leia on the VC 150 card. So as you can see there, VC 150, the one that I always owned since just before Christmas that came with my wave was the incorrect VC 164. So if anyone doesn't know the story behind that and why that happened, VC 150 was originally reserved for Darth Revan. They actually pulled that figure because of fan reaction, because they were just going to repack the 30th anniversary figure, which isn't up to today's standards. So they gave the slot to Leia, but they'd already produced her and put her out on VC 164, which I think is now Cara Dune, I think. Jedi Joey says, what character from ESP would you like to see in the vintage collection that Kenner Hasbro never made? PS, enjoy your videos. Thank you. Thank you, Jedi Joey. ESP. I might be missing something here, but I think you mean ESB. I hope you do, because I might be missing something completely there. But ESB, Empire Strikes Back, if that's what you're talking about, then I think one figure always comes to mind when I think about this, and that is the Leia Bespin Escape figure. I just love the way she had her hair plaited, her white uniform. That's something that Kenner never made, and it's definitely a figure that I'd love to see on a vintage style card. And I know we recently had her in the Black Series, and that is a great, great figure, by the way. So if they could do that in 3.75 inch form, I'll be very, very happy with that indeed. Now, the reason I have this figure sitting here, this is VC45. This is the original one. We're going to just take his helmet off there so you can see the old facial sculpt. And if you're aware of my channel over the last few days, I have been doing reviews of the Mandalorian waves. So that's Cara Dune, the Remnant Stormtrooper, and the Mandalorian himself, who I've given to my son, by the way. He desperately wanted the figure, and I've got another one coming on the way. And guess what? He's already lost the gun. But I suppose that's what kids do, which is a bit unfortunate. But I just wanted to open this one on this video because I didn't want to do a full review about it, because essentially it's the same figure. But I thought it'd be interesting on this video, VC45 with the new back. I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do on this video, just to quickly compare the facial sculpt and the facial details. See if they've used that new photo real tech on him. So as you can see, it's pretty much, well, it is exactly the same figure. So let's have a look, shall we? Let's see if they've changed it at all. Let's get a bit more light, and we'll just zoom in a little bit Sorry about the camera work. So let's have a look. What do you think, guys? I think he's got a bit more tone to his skin. Doesn't look so ghostly, if that makes sense. There's a bit more life to it. His lips are a different colour. But really, there isn't a great deal about it. I think the eyes and lips are slightly better. Let me know in the comments what you think, if there's really enough difference there to make any difference at all, essentially. But I think it's a bit of a smart repack, that one, with the Clone Wars coming back. I know it's the Phase 1 armour, and currently, obviously, they're in Phase 2 armour in the show. But still, I think it's a smart repack. The VC-45 was becoming quite an expensive figure, and obviously it's an army building figure, isn't it? So you can get yourself a load of these new ones, and they'll, with their helmets on, they won't look any different to your original ones that you got back in 2011 or end of 2010, whenever that was. Tim Hayes says, would you like to see a new Slave Leia figure in the vintage collection? Yeah, possibly. Why not? I don't think they'll call her Slave Leia. I think those days are gone. I think they're far too PC now to be calling her anyone a slave. So I think she'll be called something similar to that, but without using the word slave. But again, that's one of those ones that is quite an expensive figure to get on the secondary market. So if they were to re-release that, I'd have no problems about that at all. You know, do her up slightly with the new photo reel. Absolutely fine. Armoured Armstrong says, what other playsets would you like to see made for the vintage collection? I would like to see Dagobah, Cantina and Exegol playset, to name a few. So definitely you've mentioned two there that I would love to see. So Dagobah, we're talking about Yodas Hut a minute ago. That's definitely something I would love to see. I think that's definitely one that you could pack a couple of figures in with it as well. Very much like the Jabba's Palace that we had. Same with the Cantina. That would be brilliant, because that would open up Hasbro to having to give us lots of the Cantina aliens that we so desperately want. But I think if I was going to also pick one that's not on that list, I would go for maybe a Hoth playset. There was plenty of Hoth playsets back in the vintage days. One with a probe droid maybe. I think that would look quite nice, maybe with a cannon or a turret or something. Give us some Hoth Stormies. Something from the first act of the Empire Strikes Back would be awesome. Daniel Benedicus says, what vintage figs are you still missing apart from the Ewoks, mate? Great Q&A. I really enjoy Sundays with this. Thank you very much, mate. I really do appreciate that. I've got to be honest, I'm missing quite a few of the original vintage line. And the reason for that is because back in the day, when I was a kid, when I hit about 14 and I needed money started being important to me to buy new trainers and things like that, new bits for my skateboard. The figures just got sold along with all of my Transformers. I kept a few bits like my vintage Millennium Falcon, my Snow Speeder, got a few figs. And then ever since then I've been buying carded figures, modern figures, and having a full range of the 96 wasn't that important to me. But I am trying to get that done now, as it were. I want to complete that, but there are some that are a little bit out of my reach at the moment. They're really, really expensive because I'm after like mint examples of them. So some of them are a little bit expensive. So that's probably why I've tried to finish off the Ewoks, because they're relatively easy to get, apart from the last one that I need now, which is Warwick, because I have actually got Papaloo on the way, which is very nice. I've bought that off someone off a Facebook group for £34. I thought I got an absolute bargain with that, so pulled the trigger on that immediately. So yeah, I just need Warwick now, so hopefully in the coming days, weeks, I'll see one again and I'll be able to pick it up. Rob S722 says, great content always. Thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate that. I have a question for you. From the original 98 back from the 80s, how many of those figures have been made in the vintage collection, and would you like to see Hasbro finish off that collection? So we have the complete 98 back in the vintage collection. Keep up the great work. So I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that it's 96 figures. 97 if you're going to include Blue Snaggletooth, but he never actually came out on a card back. But if you're just talking about figures that came out on card backs back in the day, I think it's 96, I think. Would I like all of those in the vintage collection? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I do my channel. I'm championing for the original figures that we had back in the day to be having modern examples put on those original card backs. For example, the Power Droid that we're getting towards the end of this year, that's a great example of one that we needed, and we're going to hopefully get on that vintage card. In terms of how many there are still left to do, I would say go check out my checklist on my website, because you'll see there There's often characters which maybe you could say have kind of been done, like for example the Emperor from Revenge of the Sith. Is that enough to be like the one that we got back in the day? Personally, not for me. I'd want him on that Return of the Jedi card back. Then you've also got the figures that were in the Vintage Saga collection, like Bossk, and you've got the original Vintage Trilogy collection as well. So in those, there's what, 23 odd figures or 24 figures or whatever. Some of those need redoing badly, like Princess Leia Organa, Lando Calrissian. In my opinion, they're not good enough anymore, those figures, so I can't count them as being part of the vintage collection, because for one, they're not officially part of the vintage collection because they're not numbered, even though they are very similar because they've got the vintage style cards. But I just think those figures are done now. We need new representations of those figures back in the vintage collection with numbers. So judging by that, I wouldn't want to put a number on it. Just check out the checklist and see if you can come up with the answer. Coldip Binning says, cool. How many 3.75 inch Bosks do you have, and who on YouTube do you follow? I'm going to do a whole video about who I follow on YouTube and who I've followed the longest and things like that. There's some great channels out there that I've followed for a very long time, and there's also some channels that I regularly watch now, like Only One Kenobi and Usual Mike. Not because they do great content, they do, but they're my mates and I want to help them, and I watch their videos and I find them interesting. But there's loads of other channels that I've watched over the years, which I think I'm going to do a whole video about who I watch on YouTube. Your first question about how many Bosks I have, if you're talking about the vintage ones, I'm just going to count them now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 5 original vintage Bosks. 46 Zone says, nice video. Have you ever made a Dio for your figures, and if so, what was it? I've never made one. I've just got this one here. This one came with the droid pack from Galaxy's Edge. So it's the most recent Rise of Skywalker droid factory. And it's a very nice Dio. So he goes very nice with the Rey. I always put them together. They look great together. Because I do like that Vintage Collection Rey, the most recent one from the Rise of Skywalker. Hang on a second, I'll just get it. This one here. He goes very well on that stand next to her like that. That's how I have her displayed. And the final question this week comes from CZA, etc. And he says, based purely on aesthetics, who do you think is the coolest looking masked Star Wars character? He likes Enfys Nest. Masked. Is that helmets and everything? Because obviously you've got Boba Fett and the new Mandalorian. They're pretty cool, aren't they? Some of the clones look fantastic. Are we counting helmets as masks? I think we are. I think the new Knights of Ren are pretty decent. That is a very nice mask or helmet on that guy there. And the 6-inch Black Series version as well that they've just come out. They're pretty cool. I think helmets and masks, there's plenty of them in Star Wars, isn't there? So many you can think of, and they're all pretty cool. I think that the person that designs those sorts of things really has it nailed. And by the way, if anyone's wondering, this Boba Fett here actually came with the 25th issue of the D'Agostini Build Your Own X-Wing, which I've got through the post the other day. So I've got another episode of that to do where I'm building the X-Wing, so stay tuned for that if you're interested in that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this week's episode of Ask Boss Bounty. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode, and I thank you all very much for tuning in this week. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one.